So just touch on BS476 because this is much far reaching than just fire curtains. So it might be more relevant to some of you than just fire curtains. So the Building Safety Act, you may have seen, there's out for consultation at the moment, is a removal of BS476 from use. And it's a general direction of travel, really, is what we're seeing is with BS476 is a move towards European standards and classifications in the place of British standards. And it is one of the results of Grenfell, so the tightening up on standards and competency. And what we know, we've actually known this for 20 years as a country, and it's not a great reflection on us that we've held on to BS476. So we've known since 2000 that the European fire test is a more rigorous test. So just as an example, the plate thermometer used in the European fire test 1634 Part 1 will mean that the product tested has up to 30% greater thermal exposure. So we could get our fire curtain tested to BS476 and we could achieve a 60-minute rating, or a competitor could. Ours was tested to the European fire test and classification system, 60 minutes. You could take a product tested under BS476, put it through the European test, and it might only achieve 45 minutes. Obviously, that's critically important if you are a fire engineer and you are doing a strategy and you're looking for 60 minutes of integrity and you're using the European classification and standards. You could allow, or somebody could put in a BS476 tested 60-minute fire door or any product. As I say, BS476 applies widely, and it might only give you 45 minutes against what your strategy is designed for. The European standards classification are very rigid and rules-based. They use calculation methods and expert judgments that are already agreed upon and written down in a SEN standard. So what we've allowed under the BS476 is, I think it's the Passive Fire Protection Forum Code of Practice, where it's a little bit like, we've got a product here that's tested under 476, but we've got some variations to the product. We're using some different components or we're using some sizes that aren't tested. What we've traditionally allowed in this country, which we're not advocates of, is to call in a fire engineer and, in the reality, day to day on site, a lot of pressure. We've got a handover here, the contractor calls them in and says, we've got a handover here. Is this fire door going to be okay? We've varied it here and here. Your expert judgment, is that okay? And it's very much an on the day assessment, and that's okay. And it passes. The European system is a lot more predefined and much more rigid boundaries. It's more conservative too, which obviously as a fire product and system is definitely better to err on the side of caution, and removes those likelihood assessments we just referred to that we see on the site assessments, and we think this should be okay. The European standards get rid of that, and we're a big advocate of only installing what's been tested. Okay, big investment on the part of us manufacturers, but we've seen it in security for years where if you want to use, if you're familiar with LPCB and LPS 1175 standards for security doors, if you want to have a door a certain size with a certain vision panel and a certain lock and a certain hinge, you have to have all that tested to get the certification. How much more so for a fire product where lives are dependent on it? With that security products stop you breaking in, we're talking about life safety products. So we think it's a move in the right direction, only allowing tested products. And we've already touched on the greater thermal exposure in the European test. How this is relevant to fire curtains is, you may be familiar with BS8524 Part 1, which is a British standard relating to fire curtains. It's actually recently lost its notified body backing, so it's no longer available with third-party certification, which is really a pause on the standard, if not potentially an end to it. But one of the downsides of it has 30 references to BS476 in it. We have, as a company, have moved with the European standards some years ago. So none of our fire tests are to that